Good morning, everybody. My name is Dominic M. Calabro, and I am President and CEO of Florida TaxWatch. Welcome. Today with me, we'll be releasing the report, the Florida TaxWatch research report called A Catalyst for Growth, an analysis of Florida's economic development incentive programs, a topic of importance and relevant discussion in the halls of the legislature these next few weeks. With me to discuss the report in much greater detail will be Senator George Lemieux. Senator Lemieux is the chairman of the Florida TaxWatch Advisory Board for the Center for Competitive Florida, and in his day job is chairman of the Gunster Law Firm. Also with me is Sissy Proctor, right behind me, to my back. As you know, Sissy is the Executive Director of the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. And beside her is Mike Grisham. Mike's the Senior Vice President for Legislative Affairs at Enterprise Florida, the marketing arm for the state of Florida. Next is Tom Feeney. Tom is former Speaker of the House, Congressman, and currently President and CEO of Associated Industries of Florida. Also with us is Doug Wheeler. Doug is the President and CEO of the Florida Ports Council. We also have Amanda Bolin, who's with the Florida Manufacturers Association, and Frank Walker, who's Vice President of Government Affairs for the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Florida TaxWatch has been a premier state government watchdog for the last 36 years. Our research recommends productivity enhancements and explains the statewide impact, the pros, the cons, the costs, the benefits of Florida's key spending programs, initiatives to help create a vibrant, educated, and healthy state of Florida. We're working to build a better Florida through our last 37 years. This research recommends productivity enhancements and explains the statewide impact of fiscal and economic policies and practices so that we can better serve the people of Florida. I'm proud to announce the release of the TaxWatch report on economic development, again, a catalyst for growth, an analysis of Florida's economic development incentive programs. Florida is one of the most robust economies in the world. Let me repeat that. Florida is one of the most robust economies in the world and continues to grow. The Florida economy is valued at almost $1 trillion. The latest number from the federal government is it's $883 billion of gross domestic product. $883 billion, nearly $1 trillion. If it were a nation, it would be the 17th largest economy in the world. So there takes a lot of effort to keep that engine going, let alone going in the correct, right direction of diversification and economic growth. Florida's economic development incentives are a crucial component in keeping as well as luring business to Florida. But we must have targeted, focused leadership and resources to attract high-paying jobs that would not otherwise be created or retained in the state of Florida. Again, the key is that would not otherwise be retained or created in the state of Florida. If Florida is to remain competitive and continue growing as a top state to do business, to grow jobs, to have capital, it must adequately fund and wisely fund its economic development program. As other states increase their funding, Florida must prepare for the future by competition to ensure that our children and grandchildren have the opportunity to pursue their dreams in Florida. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to Senator Lemieux. Senator?
Well, good morning. It's a privilege to be here this morning on behalf of TaxWatch. I have the privilege of volunteering as the chair of the Center for Competitive Florida, and I've always appreciated TaxWatch during my time in the private sector as well as my time here in Tallahassee in government for the research-based work that they do, and it really is what makes TaxWatch special. And this report is another example of that good research, looking at these incentives from a research focus to show why they work and what can be done better, frankly. To me, the reason why we're talking about incentives really goes back to 2007 through 2010, when Florida experienced the worst recession since the Great Depression. And we realized during that time period that we were reliant on too few drivers in this economy. We had too few eggs in a basket. And when that basket broke, Floridians suffered. We needed a more robust, a more diverse, a more resilient economy. And these incentives help to bring those sophisticated, high-paying jobs to Florida. So let's talk about what this report does and about these incentives. So in 2015 and 2016, the amount of money that the legislature provided was $43 million, about a $28 million reduction from the previous year. Now, when you think about $43 million, that is a small fraction compared to the $78 billion state budget. My view, and the view of TaxWatch, is we must make those funds more robust. And we know that there are good results, and that's what this research shows. Just for example, a couple of the incentives programs that the state runs under the leadership of Governor Scott and under Sissy Proctor, who's here today. The Quick Action Closing Fund has created more than 5,800 jobs since 2009 and $555 million in capital investments. The QTI, or the Qualified Target Industry Business Fund, has created more than 37,000 jobs, 26% more than required, and has a return on investment of $6.8 for every job invested. This governor has run and governed in this state on the basic principle that the most important thing you can do for a person is to make sure that they have a job. Because once they have a job, they can provide for their families. These funds, when used the right way, bring businesses and retain businesses to create more jobs in Florida and help diversify our economy. Now, all these programs are not perfect. There's room for improvement. We talk about that in the report. All of these programs need to be evaluated. I'm confident they are being evaluated, and they need to be improved. And the money needs to go into the programs that are working the best. But first and foremost, it's our view that we need to invest more. The governor's asked for $250 million. We think that that's the appropriate amount. That gives enough of a tool for the governor and for the legislature and for the state of Florida to attract these headquarters, these aerospace jobs, these high-quality jobs here in the state of Florida. So in conclusion, we believe that the legislature should come to that agreement to make that funding, to allow for these dollars, to bring these jobs and to retain these jobs in Florida, and that it's vital that these funds be appropriated so that the governor's office and the Department of Economic Opportunity has the tools to bring these good paying jobs and retain these good paying jobs here in the Sunshine State. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend from Enterprise Florida, Senior Vice President of External Relations, Mike Grissom.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Dominic and TaxWatch for putting this report together, as well as Senator Review for helping us present it today. I'd also like to thank our partner at DEO for being here, as well as our friends with the manufacturers, the Chamber, AIF, and the ports for being with us here today. The core mission of Enterprise Florida is to diversify the state's economy, protecting it against another economic downturn and creating opportunities for every Floridian. We share a common goal with Governor Rick Scott to make Florida the #1 place for job creation in the country. It's important to point out, though, that incentives are only one piece of the puzzle of economic development. Florida's low tax, low regulation, business-friendly environment, as well as its world-class infrastructure and diverse workforce all play a part. In fact, Florida is ranked the #2 state in the nation for job creation. But in a highly competitive global business market, Florida is competing against not only other states but other nations for job creation projects. A robust incentive program gives us a competitive advantage and allows us to compete for and win projects that we couldn't win otherwise. Through the incentive programs that the Senator mentioned, like Quick Action Closing Fund and QTI, in the last fiscal year alone, we were able to land projects with a projected $2.7 billion worth of capital investments and over 33,000 new jobs. This recent TaxWatch report found that those programs have great return on investment of taxpayer dollars and should be prioritized moving forward. We couldn't agree more. The governor's legislative proposals to streamline and improve the incentive process, including funding the $250 million Florida Enterprise Fund, will diversify our economy, empower businesses both large and small to succeed, and make Florida its first for job creation. I'd first like to thank the chairman of our board, Governor Scott, for championing these causes. But I'd also like to thank Senator Jack Latvala and Representative Jim Boyd for agreeing to sponsor the legislation and helping us move it through the process, and for Speaker Steve Christofoli and President Andy Gardner for their leadership on this issue. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to turn it over now to Sissy Proctor with DEO.
Thank you, Mike. Florida's economy has made great strides in the last 5 years. Businesses in our state have created more than 1 million jobs. Our unemployment is down to 5%, and the number of individuals receiving reemployment assistance because of layoffs is plummeting. However, it's critical not to lose sight of our goals. Now more than ever, Florida must double down on its commitment to economic growth. We must continue to invest wisely to ensure that Florida meets the needs of our citizens, that is in our population that is growing by more than 1,000 people every day. By staying focused, Florida can attract new businesses, foster economic growth, bring new jobs to our state, diversify local economies, and remain competitive in the global marketplace. This means continuing to create a pro-business environment. We've cut taxes 50 times, but we must keep cutting. We've made investments in infrastructure across the state in both large and small communities, but we must keep investing. We've helped businesses already here grow while showing businesses across the world that Florida is the best place to be, but we must keep working. And we have used incentives successfully to beat out other states and attract great companies here, but we must keep competing. The competitive incentives in Florida's economic development toolkit have been a necessity and important piece of our economic recovery. Several years ago, reforms to the economic development process made incentives more accountable, more transparent. We have the opportunity this year to embrace further reforms to the incentive process that will result in sustainable economic growth across our great state. Governor Scott's proposed $250 million Florida Enterprise Fund will ensure that Florida remains competitive and continues to bring thousands of new jobs to hardworking Floridians. And the TaxWatch report shows that strategic incentives continue to have a place in successful economic development programs, and we are looking forward to the results of a refined incentive program we'll have on our state's economy into the future. I want to thank Dominic and your team at Florida TaxWatch for shining the light on incentives in Florida and highlighting the competitive opportunities a strong incentive program and a diversified economy can provide to our state. Thank you.
I want to emphasize again that we really appreciate as taxpayers what the legislature did by having the Department of Economic Opportunity, which was an outgrowth of the former Governor's Office of Trade, Tourism, and Economic Development. So there's a discipline to check the numbers to make sure that the incentives that may be given are thoughtful, that there's a high return on investment, because no matter how good we do our job in advance, no matter how good a job they do, we will not bat 1,000. But that's not really the challenge. The challenge is to be relevant, to make sure we do everything we can to provide that hope that Senator Lemieux talked about, and that's capital formation and job growth in Florida, not in other states. Just less than 8 years ago, Florida was seen as a declining state economically. They're talking about Florida, the Sunshine State, was in decline. Well, it's not now, and it takes a lot of effort to keep that momentum going, and it really does offer. When someone has a job, they're less likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. They're more likely to be net producers. They're more likely to be contributors to society than recipients and takers. And so from the taxpayer's point of view, everything we can do to create that kind of economic opportunity for all Floridians, and especially continue to diversify our economy, is of great value.